If you walk away,
Please, help my
the alien
sisters.
girl whispered, her voice shaking.
I'll do
We
what I
die
can.
legally. The human stared at the contract glowing on the wall. Then he smiled, slow and dangerous. Good, he said. That means someone made a law I'm about to break. The distress signal was old. Weeks, maybe months. The kind most pilots ignored because hope didn't survive that long in open space. The human slowed his ship anyway. The structure drifted at the edge of a dead trade corridor. A corporate habitat shell, scorched, cracked, officially listed as decommissioned. That word carried weight in interstellar law. Decommissioned meant abandoned. It also meant no responsibility. He docked manually. The clamps protested like they hadn't been used in years. Inside, the air was stale and hot, thick with the smell of overheated circuitry and something organic that had been left too long. Emergency lights pulsed weakly along the corridor, bathing everything in a sick amber glow. His boots echoed as he moved, one hand near his sidearm, the other tracing the walls as if the station itself might give way. That's when he heard breathing. Not machinery, not vents, people. The chamber door slid open with a tired groan, and the sight inside made him stop cold. 5 alien girls were confined within individual restraint fields, suspended just above the floor. Not chained, not caged, suspended clean, precise, efficient. Their species had pale, iridescent skin marked now with bruises where gravity had worked against them too long. One was unconscious, another barely upright, shaking. The eldest remained awake, though it clearly cost her effort to stay that way. Her eyes locked onto his instantly. Relief flashed there, and then something darker. Calculation learned too young. She spoke carefully, like every word had been rehearsed over a lifetime of consequences. Before you say anything, you should know the station is still under corporate lien. He followed her gaze. The wall behind them was etched with glowing legal text, contracts looping endlessly in multiple languages, terms of service, debt clauses, survival exclusions. They weren't prisoners. They were assets. If you interfere, she continued quietly, you become liable for damages, for loss, for us. Her voice wavered on the last word. Silence stretched. The station hummed, indifferent. The human stepped closer, reading faster than she expected. His jaw tightened, not in fear, but in disgust. So they left you here to die, he said, and made it lawful. She nodded once. We thought, if someone came, maybe we could bargain. Her hands trembled where the field held them. Please, she said softer now, if you can save my sisters. He raised a hand, not to stop her, but to steady the moment. I'm not here to bargain, he said. Then he reached for the control panel and powered the restraints down anyway. The first thing that returned was sound. A soft coughing breath. A sharp inhale that ended in a startled gasp. One of the sisters cried out as circulation rushed painfully back into limbs that had forgotten how to feel. The human moved without urgency but without pause, catching bodies as the restraint fields released, lowering each of them carefully to the deck like they were made of glass instead of bone. Easy, he murmured more than once. Not orders. Reassurance. He positioned them along the shaded side of the chamber, tearing open emergency hydration packs and pouring water slowly, drop by drop, into cupped palms. Not because the manual said to, because he'd learned what happened when panic tried to fix damage too fast. The eldest watched him through half-lidded eyes, confusion knitting her brow tighter with every passing second. You freed us, she said hoarsely. Yes. You didn't finish reading the liability clauses. I did. That usually stops people. He snorted quietly, adjusting a thermal blanket around the youngest sister. Yeah, I've noticed that. The sound startled her. A laugh, brief, surprised, almost offended by its own existence, escaped one of the others. Cut through the tension like sunlight through dust. The human glanced up. Careful, he said dryly. First laugh in a survival scenario is bad luck. That earned a second, weaker laugh. He smiled despite himself. He worked with practiced efficiency, checking pulses, activating portable cooling units, muttering under his breath when alien physiology refused to line up neatly with human medical assumptions. You'd think, he said to no one in particular, that by now the galaxy would agree on where the important organs go. The eldest swallowed. Why are you doing this? He paused, considering the question as if it deserved honesty, which surprised her most of all. Because leaving you there would have followed the rules, he said. And I'm tired of rules that excuse cruelty. She absorbed that in silence. Her entire life, help had always come with expectations, with hands that lingered, with debts that grew heavier the longer you breathed. She waited for the shift, for the look, the question, the unspoken claim. It didn't come. Instead, he finished securing a brace around her shoulder and stood, wiping sweat from his brow. You're safe, he said. For now. That's the only promise I make. For now, she echoed. He glanced toward the sensor panel, expression sharpening. Yeah, he replied quietly, because people who treat lives like inventory tend to notice when something goes missing. Her stomach tightened. Outside the habitat, something distant hummed. Faint, rhythmic, and approaching. And for the first time since the restraints powered down, fear returned. Not of him, of what would come next. The warning tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. A soft chime pulsed from the sensor panel, steady and patient, like something that already knew it would be answered. The human crossed the chamber and scanned the readout. His expression didn't harden, it simplified. Fear stripped away, leaving focus behind. We've got incoming traffic, he said. Multiple signatures. The sisters shifted instinctively closer together. Old fear moved faster than thought. The eldest pushed herself upright despite the pain flaring through her spine. They'll say we belong to them, she said. That we were abandoned under Clause 7. He nodded once. I figured. You don't understand, she pressed. They won't threaten you. They'll be polite. They'll call it a misunderstanding. And when that doesn't work, they'll call it lawful, he finished. Her breath caught. Yes. Silence settled between them, thick with things neither of them wanted to name. She searched his face, looking for doubt, for calculation. For the moment he would decide the cost was too high. Instead, she found something steadier, resolve without performance. There's something I need to say, she said suddenly. He turned, giving her his full attention. When I begged you earlier, I meant it, she continued, voice trembling but clear. I offered what I did because it was the only currency I had left. And if you want, I don't, he said gently but firmly. She blinked. You didn't let me finish. I don't need you to, he replied. Choice doesn't count if it's made under a knife. The words hit her harder than any threat. She had lived her whole life believing consent was a technicality, a box to check once survival was secured. No one had ever told her it was supposed to be free. Before she could respond, the sensor chimed again. Closer now. He moved to a storage crate near the wall and opened it, revealing equipment that didn't belong on a civilian ship. Not flashy, not new, maintained, purpose-built. You knew this might happen, she said slowly. He hesitated just a fraction, then nodded. I hoped it wouldn't, but yeah, I planned for it. What are you? She asked. He gave a faint, humorless smile as he checked the charge on a long-range transmitter. Someone who got tired of pretending these systems were broken by accident. The hum outside deepened. Engines this time, close enough to feel through the deck. One of the younger sisters whimpered. The eldest placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, surprised to find strength there. If they take us, she said quietly, they'll erase what you did. He met her gaze. Then we make enough noise that erasing it costs them. She swallowed. And if that fails? He clipped the transmitter to his belt and powered it on. A single light blinked, waiting. Then, he said calmly, they'll learn something most of the galaxy forgets. What's that? He looked toward the sealed hatch as shadows passed over the habitat. That humans don't need permission to do the right thing. The light turned solid. Somewhere far above them, a signal leapt into the dark. The first ship settled into position with surgical precision. Then another, and another. Matte black hulls, unmarked, their presence louder than any broadcast. The habitat's external lights dimmed as power was siphoned away. An old intimidation tactic. Darkness, controlled and deliberate. A voice cut through the comms, smooth and rehearsed. Unidentified human vessel. You are in possession of corporate property currently listed as unrecoverable collateral. Power down and prepare to comply. Property. The eldest felt the word like a bruise being pressed. The human stepped forward, activating the external channel. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. You abandoned them, he said. Left them without life support. A pause. Then a chuckle. Incorrect. Survival was not guaranteed under their contract. The sisters stiffened. They had heard that sentence before, in training halls, in quiet rooms where resistance was taught out of you. The human exhaled slowly. Funny thing about contracts, he said. They don't hold up well once people start reading them out loud. A holographic display flared to life above his wrist, broadcasting across every open channel. Data streams unfolded. Maintenance logs falsified. Emergency shutoffs disabled. Distress beacons suppressed. Each red marker pulsed like an accusation. The voice on the comm hesitated. Just long enough. You're overreaching, it snapped. Even if your claims are accurate, authority response time is 8 minutes, the human finished. 6 if they're already watching. The silence that followed was no longer confident. A boarding ramp extended from the lead ship anyway. A tall figure emerged, flanked by armored escorts. His movements were precise, augmented eyes flickering as they scanned the scene. You should have walked away, the trafficker said. Humans love to believe morality is a shield. The human smiled faintly. No, it's a signal. The eldest stepped forward then, heart pounding hard enough she was sure they could hear it. We were conscious when they shut the power down, she said. Her voice carried, clear, unbroken. They watched us suffocate and logged it as depreciation. The trafficker waved her off. You agreed to. No, she said louder now. We survived it. Something shifted behind the mercenaries. Unease, doubt. The sky split open. Blue-white light tore across the horizon as authority cruisers dropped from fold space. Engines screaming like judgment. Sirens followed sharp, absolute. Weapons locked onto every hostile signature with merciless precision. By order of the Interstellar Authority, a voice thundered. All vessels stand down immediately. Chaos erupted. Weapons clattered to the ground. One mercenary ran. Another froze. Restraints snapped shut around the trafficker's wrists mid-protest. As officers moved in, the eldest exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for years. She looked at the human. You knew they'd come, she said. He shook his head. No, he replied quietly. I made sure they couldn't look away. Behind them, the sisters cried. Not from fear this time, but from something unfamiliar and overwhelming. Relief. And for the first time, the system that had defined their lives stood exposed, small, brittle, and very much afraid. Morning arrived quietly. The authority ships lifted off one by one, engines fading into the pale sky until only dust and silence remained. The habitat felt larger without them. Emptier, but lighter too, like a place that had finally exhaled after holding its breath for far too long. The sisters gathered what little they owned. Small things, keepsakes worn smooth by years of fear. They moved with a nervous energy, as if still waiting for someone to tell them they had misunderstood. That freedom came with fine print. An authority officer knelt in front of them, voice gentle. Your status has been cleared, she said. You're free citizens. Transportation to your homeworld is ready when you are. Free. The word didn't land all at once. It settled slowly, like warmth returning to fingers after cold. There were embraces. Tight, shaking, unashamed. Promises spoken too fast and repeated twice, just to make them real. When the youngest sister hugged the human, she hesitated, then whispered, You're strange. He smiled. I get that a lot. They laughed. All of them felt new. When the transport ramp finally closed, four figures waved through the viewport until distance turned them into silhouettes. The eldest remained behind, standing beside the human at the edge of the landing pad. You could go with them, he said gently. No pressure. No hope hidden behind the words. I know, she replied. That's why this matters. She faced him fully now. I'm not staying because you saved me. Not because of what I once offered. And not because I owe you anything. He watched her carefully, saying nothing. I'm staying, she continued. Because you gave me something I didn't know how to want. She placed a hand over her chest. The right to choose. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. He nodded once. Then you stay. Life found a rhythm after that. They repaired what could be repaired. Shared quiet meals. Argued over useless things like whether human coffee qualified as a beverage or a threat. When she laughed now, it came easily. When she stood beside him, it was by choice, not habit. One evening, as stars burned cold and steady overhead, she leaned against him and said softly, You never asked me to stay. He glanced at her, faint humor in his eyes. Didn't need to. She smiled at that, because for the first time in her life, nothing was being taken from her. Only given. And somewhere between the broken station and the open sky, two beings chose each other. Not out of desperation, not out of debt, but freely. If that isn't what humanity stands for, then nothing is. Freedom doesn't come from being saved. It comes from being chosen, and being allowed to choose back. If this story made you feel something, hope, anger, courage, then stay with this channel. Here, humanity isn't the strongest species in the galaxy. It's the one that refuses to look away. Subscribe for more HFY stories where strength is given, not taken.